Greetings, programs. It's Q3, week 6, day 3. Check yourself. That's a good one. I was really proud of that one. I came up with that recently. That's a good one. I like it. Anyway, check yourself. Today, we are going to work on laying out our UV. So we're going to check for n-gons. We're going to reset our transforms because you always got to do that. We're going to get a decent layout to work with, and we're going to separate all of our major parts and confirm which piece is which. So we sort of did this at the end of the last video. We sort of broke everything out, but you can see I sort of laid this out so the head's on the top, and then the hands on the left, and the arm, and then mostly shirt stuff, the belts here, the pants, and then the shoes. So it's kind of like a broken little person here. Once again, it doesn't really matter how you lay it out as long as you know where pieces are. That's kind of the important part here. Then we're going to work on half of it, of course, because that's what we do. We're going to relax the pieces out into their individual sections. So you'll see I've relaxed them out. We're going to use approximately 25% of the UV space, which is the space inside this box, for the head. And that'll be all the pieces of the head, the ear, the eye. Well, the eyeball will sort of just tuck in wherever we can, and the neck. 50% will roughly be the shirt and the arms, and then 25 for the pants and shoes. Now what that'll do is that will end up giving us something that looks roughly like this. Now as we finish, as we go through this, it may not look exactly like this, but this is the layout that I made beforehand. You'll notice the head is taking up most of this space over here, which is probably closer to 30%, but whatever. Ballpark wise, we're looking for 25, which would be roughly this much. And then the arms are here. The arms are pretty big. The shirt's here, and it's pretty big as well. The pants, even though there are a lot of the actual space, are taking up way less space of the UV. And the shoes are small compared to how big they are compared to the face. So what that ends up with is a checker pattern that goes from smaller to medium to larger to relatively large. And that's good for interactive applications in our case, because most of the time, if you're going to be looking at a character, you're going to look at their upper body, because that's where all the action's happening. You're going to be looking at their face, because that's where that's where they're emoting. Hopefully, that's where they're going to be talking. That's where their little picture is going to focus on. The next thing would be their shirt, because that's where they're doing fun things with their arms and their hands and doing important things. And then the least amount of UV space should usually be spent on the legs and the feet, because when you watch a character, you very rarely stare at their feet, hopefully. And with that, let's get started. So I'm picking up at Q3 week 6 day 3 start, which looks something like this. I maybe changed the camera view, but go ahead and grab your model, and I'm going to go to my unwrap modifier, which is what we were working on yesterday. Let's open the UV editor and look at what we got. I'll maximize it for now. Now, if you have two screens, it can be really, really, really valuable to work with, especially if you can just drag it off on another screen over here like I do, and work with it. However, 3D is a little weird for me. When I do that, it tries to zero out where I am, so that's annoying. But if you have two monitors, UVing becomes way, way better to work with. So anyway, let's look at what we have. All right. I'm going to hit the number 3 to get faces, and I'm going to hit Control A for selecting all. So this is my head and hands and arms. So you can see there's my hair, the nostril, the ear, the neck. This is the inside of the mouth, the eyeball, the face, two parts of the hands, the upper part and the inside of the palm. So this is the outside upper part, whatever, back of the hand and the palm. There's your arm. And we'll talk about how all that stuff. We did this yesterday. Hopefully you split it up. You'll notice I've got weird green edges around that we need to clean up, like all of these on the elbow. We'll talk about that in a second. Over here, the shirt pieces, the collar, let's see, what part is that? This part is the sleeve, and then this is the inside of the shirt, which is way big for now, but whatever. It's going to be very small because no one is ever really going to look inside there with any sort of detail. So we can tuck that away anywhere. And here are the pants, which, as I remember yesterday, they're upside down in my UV for some reason. And then underneath is the donut on the inside. All right, and the belt is here. That'll be easy to lay out. And shoes, the bottom of the shoe, the sole, and so that there, and this is the ridge around the outside. All right, so we've got all of our pieces laid out, which is nice. To me, I think that's probably the harder part, stripping it all out. This next part's sort of easier. Packing it in is moderately interesting because your mileage may vary, but this part here is pretty fun. First things first, I'm going to close this, actually, and I'm going to close that. Whenever you unwrap UV and you want to make any changes to the editable poly, do not continue. Do not ever jump down and hit continue because it will erase all of the work you've done. So go ahead and close. I didn't want you to click on that, but if you did, close that. I always, when unwrapping UV, if you right click and you collapse all, that will keep your information for your UV and bake it into your editable poly. So I'm going to click yes. So now if I want to make any changes through here, I can. And when I add the UV modifier again, it will keep roughly, it'll bring back the UV that I set. So, but the reason I did that is because I want to make sure at the beginning of this and always we reset the transforms before we start relaxing things. Because when you relax things, it has its own, it relaxes it out from a pre-transformation setting. So basically if I take this arm, you know, if I grab this arm and then I move it out, so it's, you know, super crazy arm. If I relax it, it's going to relax as though it was a short arm, which is bad. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I've finally finished my model and I have all the verts, everything where I want it to be, I'm going to select the model. So I've got the entire thing. I don't want any of the sub-objects selected. I'm going to go into Utilities, Reset Xform, and hit Reset Selected. That'll add that modifier. I'm going to right click, collapse all, and that will bake that into the model itself. Now once again, if you have questions about that, please drop them in the comments. I know it's confusing. For a long time I had no idea how to work through this and why why it was important. But it's crucially important, because when it comes to unwrapping, it's going to make a big difference. All right, let's go ahead and add our unwrap modifier again. So I just type in UN in the modifier list, and it'll pop that up. Now you'll notice all my green lines are still the same. My seam is here. All the seams that I made earlier are there. So open your UV editor, and then all of my pieces are still where they were before. So now what I really want to do is I want to sort of focus on where the edges are in my geometry and where I want them to stay, like where I want them to be. So my hand UV is running through here, and this part right here is connected, but we've got some extra green lines like there, okay? And if you look in here, this is that extra green line. What that is it's an extra edge that's been split. But I don't want it to be split, so I'm actually going to go through and start welding any of these green lines that are not on the outside edge. I'm going to try and get rid of. And I'm going to do that for all of my geometry, at least all the ones that I know what's going on. Now this here we just clicked on before. I'll show you where it is there so you can see it better. Where were we? Where'd you go? There you go. All right, so I'm going to weld those together. So now with this welding tool, this stitching tool, if you grab one and move it, you'll notice you've got two. You've got a red and a blue. I'm going to undo and let that go. If I marquee select, I get them both, and when you try and weld them, it always gets real bad. It tries to weld them to each other, and it welds them to everything around it, and it's annoying. So we don't want that, because we don't want this edge to weld to the other side. So instead of marquee select, you just click on the one you want and weld it. Now, super valuable. Isn't that great? Now, it would be cool if I could just marquee select and then weld, but it doesn't work. You see that just screwed that part up. So you actually have to go through each single one and weld it. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's what you should be doing too. So I want one green line going around the outside of each one of my shapes. Okay? Now, I also want that green line to make sense. My green line goes through the elbow like that. That's okay, I suppose. But I want to keep it consistent. So I think instead of having it go through here, I'm going to have it go around so the elbow is all one piece. So in order to do that, I'm going to hit the number 3 so I can grab faces. I'm going to grab these 2 faces only, and I'm going to break them. And what that does is it allows me to actually move these faces off. If I grab them together, they'll move together. Alright, so I've broken them off, and I'm actually just going to move them to the other side. See that? Just like that. And you can see it fits together. It's like a puzzle. I'm going to grab the edge tool, grab one edge. Doesn't really matter in this case, either one. Now that I've got one, I'm just going to stitch to average. Now I could go red to blue, like this. See how it's got a little arrow, red to blue? Or I could go blue to red. So I'm going to select this one again, this one. And if I hit blue to red, the blue will move to the red line, which is blue to red. Okay? Notice when I did this one, this automatically snapped because this one was already stitched. So if this is stitched and this is stitched, this will automatically stitch. Anyway, so here I'm just going to do average. So those are the 3 different forms that I use often. This is your own custom adjustment that you can do if you want. But today we're just going to work with these 3. Alright, cool. So that's that there. So that's good. So let's go ahead and do the process of relaxing the arm. Okay? So the arm now has one nice green line that goes all the way through and actually connects to where the green line in the hand is connected. Okay? So that works pretty well. Good, good, good. Alright. Alright, so that's good. What we can do now, since this is our split, let's go ahead and grab this and just sort of experiment with how we're going to relax it. So with the arm, I'm going to highlight the entire arm using face. Now I'm marquee selected. I also could select this select element button and then click any one of the faces, and it'll grab any and all the geometry that's connected to it. So either way, whichever way you want to do it, I'm going to marquee for now. Go to Tools. I'm going to relax. I relax by polygon angles. You've got 3 different ways to adjust things: poly, edge, and centers. Centers is really only good for having vertices average themselves. It's kind of like relax, the relax tool we use in the geometry mode, but it's not always great to use. Generally, I use polygon angles on anything like this. If you've laid something out properly, it will give you the best general shape, and that's this sort of cone looking thing, and that's what we wanted. So you can see that now we've got our nice green outline all the way around, we've got our elbow, we've got our one edge that we're using, and we're in good shape. Now we're going to continue with this this edge. Now with the hand, we're going to have some sort of edge, right? And that's this piece here, right? We've got the palm itself. Now the palm is significantly less important generally for our video game character, because it'll usually be holding something or grabbing something. Very rarely will you actually see it. I mean, maybe you've got a game where you do palm reading or something, then it would be much more important. But for us, we're pretty sure it's not going to be seen a ton. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lay this out so that I can stitch it to this part. So we're going to have both hands stitched together along the thumb line. And the reason I'm going to stitch it together over here is because I already have this line sort of connecting through. And this is on the back part of the hand. And if you're holding something and you're in first person view, you're going to see the seam in the area around your thumb and your pointer finger a lot more than you're going to see the back part of your pinky. As a matter of fact, if you try and look at the seam that we have here on your own hand. If you just take your hand off and look at it, see, like you actually got to do some contortioning to get that, to view that. So, moving on. So we're going to take this section, and to get this, I'm going to rotate this a bit, like that. You can hit A for angle snap if you want. And I'm going to use whole sections for a little bit. Rotate that. Okay, cool. So now, one of these is going to need to be flipped. So select inverted polygon. So this one's inverted. So I'm going to, oops. I had a lot of things selected. All right, I'm going to flip this and move it over here. All right, cool. So now I've got the entire hand, including the thumb. All right. So in order to get this relaxed, first thing I'm going to do is relax it some. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. So polygon angles, start relax. There you go. Now I get a lot of overlapping faces, and that's okay for now. We'll deal with that in a second. I'll do the same thing here. Relax. All right, cool. So what I've done is I've relaxed out my hands so that the geometry is basically laid out flat. Think of like taking the skin off of your hand and laying it down on a table, because that's basically what we just did in a very gross way. What I want to do is take these faces here and pull them over. So I'm going to deselect the grouping, grabbing by element, and I'm going to grow. You can actually grow ring here until I get all of this, and I'll move it out like that. Right? Cool. Now, I'm going to actually take all of this and rotate it like that, so that that sort of is going to be straight-ish, like that, straight-ish. I'm going to take this and rotate it so it's going to be straight-ish, like that. And now I'm going to start welding them together. Okay? You'll notice I've got some weird green lines in here, pieces that aren't quite where I want them to be, like that, and you can come out like that. All right, great. So now I'm going to grab some edges and weld some of these together. So weld, I'm just going to do average for now. And you can do more than one at a time sometimes. We're going to try it. Average. There we go. That worked pretty well. Stitch these two to the average. Now if I try and weld these, or this one, it may not go well. Okay, turned out alright. Okay, this face here, I think I'm going to move to the other side. See how that goes there? I'm going to break that face and move it over here, like that, there. And I'm going to weld it as well, maybe. If I weld this one, the middle one should stitch together. Oy, whoops. There, I'll weld this one. Okay, cool. Now, that face there. This is one of the, when I built this thumb, I had the geometry coming around a little bit, and you'll see that's kind of why that got like that. Okay, cool, let's look at this. So that goes there, that goes there, and that goes there. So that's where that sort of comes around. So now I'm going to take this entire section, and I'm going to relax it again. Alright, good. Cool, cool. Now I'm going to go through and make sure that the fingers aren't overlapping anywhere, because you can actually go to select overlap polygons. It'll show you what's overlapped. Right? We don't want that. So, and I've got more than just that too. I'm sure. Yeah, because we're just working with the hands. So what we're doing now is we're going to go into actual vertices and sort of relax. I'm going to grab all of these. That, oh, whoops, and that, and now I'm going to grow it. Maybe one more. There we go. So I'm stretching this out a little bit, moving it around. I'll deselect some of these, some of that. What I'm trying to do is get it to where I'm not stretching it too much, but I'm still getting it so it's not going to be overlapping the rest of it. There. Now I can move these individual verts up a little bit. I should zoom in. There. Cool. What I really just want is I don't want things to overlap too much. But I don't want to like totally screw up the geometry. So I'm just really moving things very, very subtly. To be honest, all this geometry that I'm messing with is like in between the fingers. And we're not like drastically changing it. We're just sort of massaging it a little bit. So if we have a little bit of streaking in between the fingers, I don't think that's going to be a real problem. Anyway, so there we are. So this section is basically done. All right. Now, the arm and the hands are drastically different sizes, so we can sort of, I'm holding control when I grab the edge there, sort of averaging that out. If I want, I can make sure that this edge is connected. There is a soft selection tool that you can use, like that, and you can adjust it so that I'm actually getting more than just these polys. So, and the reason I would do that, and I want to increase it. All right, I need to zero that out. All right, there. Cool. I was hoping I could show it a little better because you can't see it real well. I'm going to go back into verts. What I'm going to try and do is shrink this a little bit, like that, like that, like that. What I'm trying to do is sort of average that out a little bit so that it's going to be a little closer to what I'm going to weld it to without doing that much. Man, that's really drastic. Cool. All right, good. Once I have this to where I'm happy with it, let's grab the whole thing. I want to stitch that together. So let's go ahead and grab. Oops, got that selected. There, let's see if I can stitch that. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. You can't quite do the whole thing. If I deselect those two on the end, I might be okay. Yep, and then I can just stitch these two individually. Yep. All right, cool. Now for that section, I think I'm going to grab this part here and maybe that, but not those. And then I'm going to try and average that out. Tools, relax, poly. There. There. All right, cool. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm looking for any overlapping. I noticed I've got this, and I've got soft selection on still, so I got to be careful with that. There. There. All right, great. So that's my hands. They are all together. Now, the nice part about this is the less seams you have, the more, the smoother this whole process is going to be. When you pass it off to your 2D artist, which is you in this case, but when you have to do the modeling for this, sometimes it can be a real pain. We might want to do those together too. Let's see. Yeah, you could theoretically take that, move it over, since it's sort of by itself. I don't know. It's up to you. All right, so that's our arm. And now we should do, so the same basic process applies all the way through. The ear, in general, is pretty easy because we're not going to do a whole lot to it, except we need to slice these back edges. And the easiest way to get to them is to use this tool there and then actually select them back here. So I'm just going to select these edges. And to be honest, I'm not too worried about how the back of the ear looks, because no one's going to look at it. We just need it to not look bad. So if I take those and I break them, then I should be able to grab this entire section and just quickly relax it. Poly. Boom. Now I've found different varying, sometimes poly's good. In this case, centers isn't bad, especially if you do just verts. So if we move this to vertex and we do just the inner verts, like those, and then deselect some of these outer ones, like that one and that one. Cool. Basically, I just want this inner ring vertice. I'll grab you. And then I can try and relax it on centers. That's not what I want because that's far too squished. So I try to go back to edges. Yeah, edge, that looks pretty good. There, that's actually pretty solid. Once again, you can go to select, hit 3, select invert it, good, select overlapped, good. So this is our ear. We can see most of the geometry, and that'll be okay. All right, so the ear's a lot easier. The hair is pretty easy too. It's already split out, so we go to poly, start relax, and it should lay out just like that. That's basically all we do with that. This is the nostril. Relax it. If it spins, it's no big deal. It might be inverted. It's not. That's okay. The neck shouldn't be too bad. Start relax. Done. So what we're doing is just flattening everything out. Now the face is going to be work. We'll do that in a second. Let's get the eyeball here. Move it up out of the way. It should be okay. Yeah, that's it. I just did a relax again on that. All right, here's the mouth. The mouth is moderately difficult because what we need to do is sort of slice it somewhere where we can open it up. And the easiest way I think to do that is actually to go into the 3D view, hit the number 2, so we're working with edges. Find your edge here that you're going to split, which I think I'm just going to split right there. Break it. And that's it, because now what I can do is I can take this top part, and it's going to flip up, and this bottom part is going to flip down, of course, in here when I relax it. So polygon angles, start relax, boom. So this should be the top. It is. Good. So I grab the whole thing. I like to rotate it so it makes a little more sense. In this case also, sometimes I like to make sure that this is aligned straight. So I grab those verts, click this button here, and it aligns them straight to each other. Oops. Like that. There. And now I've got a straight line where I can make sure that all the geometry works well and I know where it is. Okay. Here's our, all right, so FaceTime. Okay, so now we're going to go into faces and work with a face. Make sure you get the whole thing. All right. We should have the entire thing. And now we're going to just plain out relax it. Now, because we're only working with half, it should be, we're going with the first time we relax it, it should sort of look okay. If not, you can try edge angles. Sometimes that's a little better to start with. Also, I find that often I can select like this triangle here is that weird inner portion. If I turn back face culling off, I should be able to grab all of them like that. Put that down so you can see what I'm doing. Hitting this over and over so I can get this. There. I should have all of them, and I can deselect that. Good. I'm going to actually split these off on their own by planar mapping them from whatever angle they want. And that will put it there, which is weird, but it's okay. Grab that, move it up here. I don't really care about this yet. I'm going to stitch it back in eventually, but I don't care about it yet. Alright, so there's the creepy face where we're at right now. I'm going to relax it again. That's good. Okay, so in order for this to lay out in a more natural way, I'm going to grab the whole thing, start relax, and then what we're going to do is split some of these edges. So I hit the number 2. I'm going to split this edge through here. Now this is where we get into things like peeling. And breaking. I'm going to break that. Break that. What we're doing is we're going to break this so that when we relax it, we can, when it relaxes, it will have less geometry to sort of stitch to, and it'll start laying out a little more flat. I need some more. You can double click just like I did. You want to leave all of this geometry relatively safe. Basically any of these, remember our ring in our mouth here, we want to leave that sort of safe so that we don't adjust it too much. Because we don't want a whole lot of split, we don't want a lot of distortion in the center of the face. That's why we're doing this with these edges, but we're not cutting all the way into the center. You can also try peeling. So you grab all of this geometry. I want to move it out of the way so I can work with it easier. And you can try something like that, which hardly ever works. You can try, by the way, you should save your work here. Save your work often when it comes to this. So I'm going to file, save as, and save. There. Okay, because UVing, it crashes on me when I UV more than anything else. All right, so anyway, where were we? Peeling. Peeling is kind of a good way to lay something out as long as you have it split already. It's not always great, but sometimes it can work pretty well. Also, you'll have a problem with your lips overlapping, and we'll deal with that together. I'm going to turn soft selection on, and I'm going to try and squeeze this together. I'm going to convert it to vertex. Pull that down a little bit, then squeeze it together. There. Cool. Actually worked pretty well. I want to deselect all of this. Deselect all the lips here. And I want to move all this down a little bit. I'm going to try and figure out exactly where my lips are. Oy, that was not intentional. Move these up. Oh, I have to turn off soft selection for now. Pretty sure these are my bottom. No, this is my top lip. Yeah. Okay. When you have a lot of overlap like this, sometimes it works best if you grab something like this and grow it, because that'll allow you to get the parts. Maybe just that. Grow. Yeah, that worked. I'll add to that. Cool. That helps. Alright, cool. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get just the mouth here. There. Cool. That's better. So the issue we're having is with the lips themselves. Here we go. So what we can do here is we can do something called pinning. So we know where we have some of the geometry that we want. We know that that's where we want it. We know that most of these are where we want them. And then what we can do is take them and then put them together like this, so they're all in a line. Snap them together in a line. And then what we can do is we can pin them. Pin selected. That means they're not going to move if we move other stuff. So I'm going to grab everything else, and then I'm going to try and relax that. Now, relaxing that, let's see here. There you go. You can relax until flat. There. That actually turned out all right. Individuals can move around. Like that. Alright, cool. So we take this now, and we need to sort of stitch pieces of it together. We can take this section here and split it some more if we want. Split it. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to just make it so that it sort of averages out. And then what we do is we're actually going to stitch back together, because we want the average of everything. So I'm going to stitch from there. Average. Average. What this means is we'll have stretched neck. The neck itself will be sort of stretchy, and around the side of the head will be somewhat stretchy, but we won't have any seams, and we really, really don't want seams when it comes to face geometry, because you pick up on that really, really quick. So we're going to try and avoid that at basically all costs. And it does look creepy. Cool. Alright. You can also go into geometry like this here and relax. Sometimes around the eyeball, I like to do by centers, because that sort of gives you a little bit of a more average between it. And also just make sure you don't have any overlapping geometry, and you should be okay. Alright, so that's creepy looking front, but we're in pretty good shape. This is basically where we're at right now. We're in good shape, and that's what we want. Now you're going to keep going through and doing all of these pieces. It can take a while. So let's go ahead and look at something easier, like the bottom of the foot. Once again, I said the face is the hardest, and it is. The belt, all we're basically, at this point, it's nice because you can just say, all right, that's done. The shoe is kind of easy. You start relaxing it, it has a hard time. You just decide, okay, I'm going to split it here. You break it, grab it, relax it, and it's done. That'll give you a seam in the back of the foot, and your laces and stuff would go right there. This portion should relax relatively easily. Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. You can do that, like you can relax it like that and then try and relax it like this. If there's extra slicing pieces and that happens, you can usually just select one, stitch to average. There you go. Stitch to average, and then this must be the one that's up there. That one's up there. Sometimes with this piece, these pieces, if you just sort of remind them who they're supposed to connect to, that fixes the problem. I'm going to save it again just in case it crashes, because this thing sometimes likes to crash. Also, I accidentally, yeah, it's being weird. I accidentally hit this without having something selected, so now it's trying to relax everything until flat, which is a problem. See, now I've got tiny, tiny little things everywhere. So I'm going to undo that, select this, relax until flat, and see how that goes. This is also a case where sometimes you can grab these faces and then try and do this, and it works sometimes, and it's great sometimes. And then you can relax it to get a little bit more of the accurate shape. But I like this. As long as this is pretty close, the fact that it's straight means you can put straight lines on it, and it'll look pretty good, usually. Polygon angles, relax. That was inverted, that's why I did that. Start relax for the pants. Oh, okay. Pants. So here are pants. They're upside down, which we've talked about already. Want to grab them all? Rotate it. Okay. Now I'm going to find out where my pants are, where my seam is. I want this to be the seam here. Okay. So this here. Okay. So this is my seam that I like. So these two need to move over. So I'm going to disconnect them and move them over. Now I'm going to weld all that stuff together. Or stitch, excuse me. I'm going to end up relaxing it again anyway, so I don't really care. So stitch. At this point, you don't really need to watch any more of the video if you don't want. It's the same thing, and I'll have a link so you can sort of fast forward to the part where I start to pack things in. So for now, if you want to watch, you can, and I'll just keep recording, and then I'll have, like I said, a link to where you can skip to what I'm doing when we pack it in. But realistically, all I do at this point, and you should always move this closer, is making sure that all of this stuff is welded together. I'm going to do the same thing for other pieces too. Once again, the face really is the hard part. Pants are easy. Shirt's not too bad. When it comes to the shirt, this part we're going to do the relaxing on, and then we're going to shrink it, holding control. Shirt. Let's see if I get it. Relax it. It was inverted. If it's inverted and you notice it flipped like that, I prefer to flip it myself and then relax it, because I feel like that's a little better. Same thing here. Start relax. There you go. I usually keep these pieces together. The collar can be difficult-ish, just because we need to sort of say what parts are going to be where. So go to the edge, and we're going to slice it right through here. So I'm going to break that there. I'm going to break that there. I'm going to break this as well. I don't really mind if there's a bunch of seams on the bottom of this thing, because it's not going to matter too much, really. If there's a bunch of seams, it's okay, because no one's going to see it. So I'm going to relax that as well. Relax by poly. And there you go. And then once that's broken out, I can re-stitch it together by selecting and then stitching to average. So this is all the under portion that I don't really care about. So if it's a little wonky underneath, I don't care. All right. All right, great. That's all the pieces, I think. So now all that's really left, oh, I should probably relax that too. Ugh. This is easy to fix by, whoa. Oh, I've got the whole thing. I'm just going to put that in there. Now this is the actual eye. Is that the nostril or the eye? I think it's the eye, yeah. We're just going to put that right back in where it was. But getting it out makes it so it's a lot easier to work with. Hold on just a second. I'll be right back. All right, so yeah, so basically we're just going to stitch that right back in where it was. Though I don't know how it got moved all the way over there. Weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab those vertices again, figure out where they are. Sometimes, like I said, things get moved in here, and I don't know why. Things get moved around, and it's very bizarre. So at some point, this geometry got moved. And like I said, this happens. It's annoying, and what we can do is we can always re-planar map it like that, and that can work. I'm gonna line it from Y, I think. That way I have more control over it. And then from here, I can adjust it. Shrink it, and then sort of move it in to where it's gonna fit. Its positioning is very, very strange. We need to make sure we're not grabbing whole sections, but now we can see where it goes. And I can just start stitching it. I'm gonna go from red to blue. And if I do that consistently, it's not really gonna matter. Red to blue. I think I averaged it. I wanted red to blue. There. So now that's on the inside. I think that's the last bit. Now all we got to do is fit it all together. This part is... What part is that? Zoom. Oh, that's my shoulder. Okay. Now for this section here, actually it's not too bad either. We've already split it, so we should just be able to grab the edge itself and then relax it. So tools, relax, get that back up, polyangle, and there you go. Now if we're going to keep that seam, if we're going to leave that seam there, that's fine. If you wanted to attach it here, that could be a decent argument to attach it to each front and back piece. It's, once again, that's sort of up to you. But right now we have everything relaxed, so now it's just a matter of packing it in. Like we talked about before. Oh, also, let's go ahead and add our new material. So hit M for material. You'll bring that up. I'm going to use this one that we've sort of been using as our default material. Click on the diffuse box right next to it. Click on that. And when it's ready, it'll come up. We're going to add a map, checker, and then it'll give you the checker options. For tiling, I use 20 by 20. You can adjust it. The higher the number, the smaller the checkers. And then if you want to change the color just because you like a different color, that's fine too. And then that should be applied there. I'm going to go up and make sure show the shaded material in viewport. So now I've got my checker map from the front. So this is it. Now we want to look for any sort of weird distortions in the checker map because we want it to be smooth. The smaller the checkers, the more you'll notice distortion. Right now, because our pieces are all over the place and we have not really reset their sizes, it is what it is. But we can adjust that. For instance, right now the ear checkers are super tiny, which means we have a whole lot of detail. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and look at this and adjust it. And we're going to get a fantastic announcement. So in here we're going to start adjusting this size-wise. Like I said before, we're going to want to make sure that this is roughly 25%. Now I'm adjusting this scale-wise, holding control and adjusting it from the edge. I'm also going to start grabbing elements, full sections. So if I grab whole sections of it, it's fine. This, we want to make sure, like I said, the face is going to take up roughly 25%. The arms and chest roughly 50, and keep things proportional. So the ear obviously should not be that big. And also keep similar colored things together. So the ear should be able to fit in through here pretty well. You can sort of see how it's all laying out. Let's see here. The eyeball doesn't need to be nearly this big. Zoom that in. I might put that underneath the hair. The eyes usually do need to be larger than they are than everything else. So their stuff, the inside of the mouth can be really small. Since we didn't even build teeth, remember? So it's not going to be a big deal. Actually, I think I'll probably put it up there. So there's room for it. So the packing in portion is kind of fun in its own way. Try and maximize space while keeping things. You want to keep a decent border between them so that different resolutions will have enough wiggle room between them. This is the nostril, which is obviously huge. We don't need it to be big at all. There. All right, and the neck. You could argue here that we should stitch this together. The only problem is it needs to be, oops, holding control. It needs to be roughly that big if we're going to try and stitch it together, which is probably not really feasible. Because really this section, if we look at the vertices, that connects to that, connects to that, connects to that. So all that would need to connect through, which actually I think I'm going to do. That in this case, you, like I said, you don't necessarily have to, but if you want to, eliminating that seam can be helpful, because that way you're not going to have a weird edge on the neck. This section here, I'm going to use soft selection a little bit through there, and then I'm going to snap it together, and then I'm going to turn off soft selection and move it. Now you've got the grid on here. You can grid snap and turn grid off so I can move it back. Cool. Once again, pants. I'm going to turn my edge faces back on, grab sections like this. The pants are going to be small compared to the face. I got a weird edge here. Those sort of things are annoying. If you do have an edge that's popping off like that, just try and bring it back around and see how you can stitch it back in. One of them will work. So I'm going to stitch that red to blue. I'm going to break it. It might be inverted. Break the whole thing off. Select inverted. Alright, that's good. That's not inverted. Though some things are. So I'm going to grab that edge and stitch it. Red to blue. There we go. If it doesn't want to relax and it's giving you issues like that, I just grab it and move them by hand. Stitch that back together. There. Cool. Grab full sections again. Alright. I like keeping the pants and the shirt generally where up is up. That way you don't have any weirdness. Be careful on weird, if you have edges that are coming off in a weird way. You've got to figure out what's going on and why they're doing that. Otherwise, it could be problematic later. And it could be emblematic of a larger issue. I mean, you don't want anything overlapping. Like, realistically, it shouldn't be anyway. Relax. It should be not overlapping. If it is, ugh. Take that, move it up. Okay, cool. What are you doing? All right, cool. These are all my shirt pieces. I'm going to go in and put those here. Trying to get them as big as I can. I might flip this. You can spin it using that tool there. Yeah, I like it better the other way. Actually, I think I'm going to take this section and move it over. You could stitch these together, but by doing so, you would be doing so in the center area. And I think the most important part here is to make sure that that it fits. If we need to, if you're going to use if you're going to create a normal map, you're going to have to rebuild some of this anyway, because you can't overlap pieces on a normal map. Otherwise, you'll have some parts of the normal map that will look like they're sticking out, and on the other side of the body, they're sticking. They're indenting. So that's not ideal. This is the collar. Put it with the rest of the shirt pieces. Looks like I've got some room for it in the center there. Alright, and belts, belt and shoe pieces are in here. Let's see. I wonder if I can tuck that in there. This is just part of the shirt that I don't really care about because it's the inside part of the shirt. If there's room down here, great. I could actually split it and overlap it if I really wanted to. This shirt piece I'm going to move around. I try not to adjust any of the shirt pieces separately, size-wise. So if I adjust any of the shirt pieces in a size manner, I try to adjust them all. That way, nothing is out of balance with the rest of it, because we don't want like the texture density to change from one part of the shirt to the next. So we don't want the checker to get smaller or larger based on just that. I like to make sure things are also, there's the belt, shoe, and this part of the shoe is going to go next to it. Maybe I can rotate that like that. Move it there. Alright. And that's the bottom of the pants. Alright. There we go. I'll put those down by the bottom of the pants. Alright, let's see how that looks. So we've got all the pieces. It's taking up most of the space that we have. I don't love the way it's laid out. I might be able to move this over, but let's see how it looks. So we've got the smallest checks on the face. Alright, let's go ahead and there. Smallest checks are on the face, and then it gets large as we go down. The shirt could probably be a little bigger. But generally, you see that the checker map is mostly checkers. In the face, you're going to have some distortion. The less distortion, the better. This is sort of distorted. We should probably go back through and adjust that. This is also somewhat distorted. It's tough, like I said. The face is so curvy and yet needs so much detail. It's one of those things where it's difficult to work with. Sometimes I'll try and take individual areas that I find are a little more distorted than I like, select them through here, and then see if I can adjust them. See if that fixes it. Like here. See, that gives us a little bit closer to what we're looking for, checker-wise. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. These are a little stretchy. Anytime you've got like diamonds, you're gonna have some issues. That's a little better. Maybe that one. There. So the checker that is less, that is more checkered is better and less weirdly shaped. The top is going to be more distorted than other parts, and that's okay. Careful when you do readjust things that you make sure that everything's still gonna fit the way you want it to. Like you cannot have anything come off like that. That is an absolute no-no. There. Alright. Like I said, we can make the shirt bigger, and once again, this is really all just a puzzle. There's no 100% right way to do it, but what you want to do is when you select all like this, it should be covering up most of your map. And by doing that, you'll be able to adjust and try and make sure that you're using the most of what you have. Like I said, it really comes down to how you want to lay it out. I don't love this layout. I like my other one better. But it's not terrible. And that's basically the whole idea behind it. Trying to use as much possible space, fitting everything in, trying to keep colors together like all the shirt pieces are together. All of the pants, which will be the same color, together. That helps that when at the end, if there's any bleed over from one color to the next, let's say you have two pieces that are close to each other, you don't have like a drastically different color bleeding onto another one. So if I use this for the belt, the shoes, usually belt and shoes are the same color, so if they bleed over one another, it's not going to be a huge problem. All of the neck, ears, like having this stuff together like that is basically what you're looking for. Like I said, I'm not in love with this layout, but it's okay. I think I can flip that, move it over here, maybe make it bigger. Anytime you can make it a little bit bigger is better. Like the fact that the collar is not, it's not the same size, because I remember I moved the collar separately. This seam is also not great. I'm watching over here and adjusting that size. You can actually see the size change. I want them roughly the same size, because then I can take this whole section and increase it like that, and it should all increase equally. The thing I don't care about is this at all. Alright, cool. But that's basically it. If you're filling up most of the space, then you're doing a good job. If you've got mostly checkers, you're doing a good job. If your checkers get bigger, if you go you go from the face down to your shoes, checkers should get bigger. That means you're using more space of the UV for the more important parts like the face and arms, and less space in the UV for less important parts like the shoes. Alright, and that should basically be it. Thanks for watching. I know this is a long one. This is one of those things. They take a lot of time. I'll try and go ahead and put sections where you can jump around in the video. Obviously, you'll have your own layout, and you're just going to want to make sure that every single edge is inside. Make sure that you don't have anything sort of getting outside the box, because that's bad. Because what ends up is it'll automatically tile it, and then it looks really weird. Alright, thanks for watching.